everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get Ready. And I'm definitely ready for this one. This is very exciting for me, bringing to a person who is very dear to my heart. Um, and I could say all kinds of wonderful, glowing things, but just to start with, I'm just going to read the official bio here. Dr. Lori Leyden, PhD, MBA, is intimately acquainted with trauma and has dedicated her life to healing her own traumas and developing the most elegant healing methods possible. As an internationally hailed trauma healing pioneer, transformational leader, and visionary spiritual mentor, Dr. Leyden has been called in to work with traumatized communities who have experienced genocide, war, and school shootings with remarkable results. She is a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, an association of transformational leaders, as well as an evidence-based EFT master trainer, and just a very special person to me. Dr. Lori Leyden, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Brad. And I'm ready. I'm ready for this interview. It's such a delight. We do many interviews with many people, but there's another thing to have that I consider you to be a sacred brother in this world of helping people heal and giving them the tools at their fingertips as we speak about. So I'm excited to be here and to talk about the book and anything else that comes up.
Well, yeah, and that was one of the things prompted. We've been talking about doing an interview for some time because I want to share you with my audience because you're awesome. Uh, but you have a book in terms of sharing these techniques. You have a beautiful new book coming out called Embodying Grace. So, what is embodying grace to you? Little
Wow.
question there.
How much time do we have? It only took me 20 years to write it all down. Um, well, the book is really what the 20 years of wisdom that I have received over using this embodying grace framework to heal my own traumas and to support the work, the humanitarian work I do in the world. And so to me, embodying, so I have this thing, Brad, now, I don't think you and I have talked about this. It's time to stop your spiritual practices now. I am good at provocative statements, but what I mean by that is, it's one thing if you've got your gratitude journal and then you do your yoga and you do your meditation and then you get off the yoga mat and you kick the cat or you yell at your spouse. This is not embodying our spiritual values. So
Right.
I talk a lot about the fact that a lot of what's being offered is really spiritual entertainment that might lead to spiritual bypass if we don't really
Right.
embody.
That spiritual bypass. That's the checkbox. Okay, I prayed today. Now I can go and it's like my father-in-law would talk about, some church and then all the people yelling at each other in the parking lot trying to get out of the parking.
Oh gosh, I mean, see, we're going to divert here, but I will say that the three things about this book that I think are really important and that support this book is really about the work that I do to prepare myself to go into these traumatized communities and how I train the people who accompany me and who are going to scale and replicate what we're doing in the world. And it's really based on three things. One is optimizing our heart, brain, body connection. And I haven't heard that term because I've coined it myself. My editor kept saying, "You can't say this." And I was like, "It's my book. I can say it." Um, but it's really based on all of the evidence that I have researched over the last 20 years about the importance of physiologically regulating ourselves.
Yeah.
And I call it being hardwired for our divinity.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we could talk about many things. I know we have a short period of time, but that's what I talk about in the book, and that the importance of physiological regulation is what connects us to our divine gifts and talents. And it's all scientifically based, and you and I know this well from the work of EFT. But I think even in the EFT world, people don't appreciate that in my opinion, the number one benefit of doing EFT is to optimize your heart-brain-body connection so that you can access the wisdom that you need in any moment. And this is the foundation of the work. And then there's the 5 stages of embodied grace, which show us where we are on our path, our spiritual path. And in my mind, it begins with the wound that we all share, which is the separation from the divine when we come into human form. And these 5 stages outline, including emotional characteristics. How do you know where you are in any moment? And how do you know where you want to be on your spiritual path? I certainly didn't have that. I call it a heart map. And so when this came through, I thought it was something very significant. And then the grace process formula, which I received after a near-death experience 20 years ago, when I was asking for what are the most elegant forms of healing that I can bring, I got this formula. And I was like, I don't want it to be a formula. What do you mean a formula? But that is the work that I've been doing. It's the formula teaches us how to get from one stage of our spiritual journey to the next. It's about transcending our egos and living in our hearts using that heart math coherence model. Now, why this is important to all of us is that we matter. Every single person on the planet matters. We have 2 purposes: heal that separation wound from the divine, and then find in the healing our trauma, we will find the seeds of our destiny in the passions that unfold. And so the greatest gift that we can give the world is to work on our own healing first, because that sets up a resonance field for that healing to unfold in the world. So that's why I think it's important to individuals. And really, my focus is healing arts practitioners who can prepare themselves to be totally present, to maximize that healing field.
Yeah, it's like what I when I talk to parents about tapping with their kids. I say, okay, step 1, tap on yourself.
Thank you.
So that you're not coming in with your baggage and trying to make the child be different so that you don't feel bad. It's like, in order for you to deliver the most maximum to your child with tapping, you need to be a clear channel as much as possible. And it totally makes sense in terms of the work for folk. I know I read it in the bio, but you've done this amazing work with genocide survivors in Rwanda, in Parkland, and
Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook. Thank you. And being right there with these people, and to be able to go in and go, okay, let me prepare so that I can be of maximum service. That's one of the things I love about being a tapping practitioner is I'm always tapping on myself. So it's like I'm clearing my own baggage so I can be as open a channel with this. And I have to this is also beautiful, but there was something you just said that you talked about, you matter. Because I had this whole conversation this morning. It's like, I've got to do a video about this. We talk about manifestation and materializing things, turning thoughts into matter. So if we have there's certain nouns we use as verbs, like bike. A bike is a thing, but instead of saying I ride a bicycle, I bike. Instead of turning things into material, I matter. And so if you say, I don't matter, how are you ever going to materialize or manifest things? And so that's really, so just when you were talking about that I matter, it's like, yes, it is such a crucial thing of recognizing that we matter and all the things that come from that. First for ourselves, because it's obviously great to heal for ourselves, but then the difference that we can make for others is profound.
And it's one of the most profound messages, I think, in this time of such chaos where people feel that they don't matter. I have a little story from Rwanda that might help in this description. But you can imagine when I received the call to go to Rwanda, I knew something significant was happening in my life. Genocide had always been something that touched my heart, that I felt so passionate that shouldn't be happening again. And so anyway, when I received the invitation, it was like, okay, I have my books and I have my credentials and I have all my experience. But I just knew in deep meditation that the thing that I needed to do to prepare myself most was to be able to sit every day in meditation and anticipate the circumstances I would find myself in. Could I sit with a woman who had lost her entire family, which was murdered in front of her? She left living with AIDS and the physical uh, destruction of what had happened in the war. Could I sit with a child who was 6 to 8 years old at the time of the genocide, who was left to care for 2 to 6 other children for the last 13 years? Could I sit with someone who had murdered 100 people? Now, granted, these are not your everyday situations. However,
Hopefully.
yes, um, but I just knew that I had to go deeply into my heart. And I used the 5 stages and physiological regulation and the grace process to sit inside of myself and find compassion for whoever I might be sitting across, to find the ability to be present in my heart, no matter how horrific the situation appeared. So get to Rwanda, anxious to work with people, but know that I have to study the culture, be in community, and just absorb, because it's, for me, it's always about being in partnership. I bring my skills and I partner with people on the ground who know themselves, their community, and what needs to unfold. And so I was at this prayer service, 200 to 300 Rwandans. At the time, no mental health system, so they felt that catharsis was the way to deal with trauma. And we know now that if you continue to trigger the body, it will continue to re-traumatize yourself. Well, anyway, so it's at the end of this church service, I'm the only white chick in the place. There's no translator. And understandably, they have some concerns about white people. And at the back, I don't understand anything that's going on. I'm just being present. And this group of about a dozen women come forward, clearly elders, clearly living with all kinds of physical disfigurements and tortures, and clearly living with AIDS. And they surround me, and I have no money, I have no drugs, I have no food, I have nothing. And I can't speak, because I mean, I can speak, but there's no translator.
Right.
So this woman steps forward and she takes down her blouse and she shows me her mutilated chest.
Just a real quick note for anyone. I'm tapping the back of my hand while listening to these stories. For anyone who's hearing this, if you maybe do some tapping to because this is it, what you do is amazing. It just hit me. It's like, yeah, there might be people who might get triggered by this, and so I want people to be as present as possible, because to really because that's why we tap, is so that people can be as present as possible to get maximum benefit from life.
And thank you for doing that. I hope that the end of the story will eliminate any need for continue tapping. But yeah, so in that moment, my ego could have exploded. I could have disintegrated into a puddle of tears. I could have tried to take control of something. I could have it wouldn't have been pretty. Let's put it that way. But in that moment, everything that I had ever prepared myself for, I was able to be present. And what happened next was not me, but my desire to serve and be of service. And anyway, I took the woman's hand and put it to my chest, and she took her hand to put to her chest. And we just dropped into each other's eyes. And we were one in that moment. Everything dissolved. I was not aware of anything except this love that was happening. And after the moment had passed, I started becoming aware of the other women, and they all moved in. I had passed the test, thankfully. But the most beautiful gift was the gift that this woman gave me. She showed me that I mattered. Now, that's a crazy outcome, if you will. But that woman gave me the most beautiful gift that in the moment, my heart and my presence was enough. And she experienced it, and the women experienced it. And that's when I knew, if I know that I'm enough in the moment, then everything can flow through me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's like we were saying earlier about the, when we're born and we feel this separation from the divine, and we start to buy into the biggest limiting belief of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. And how do we make a difference if we have this doubt that we even have a difference to make? And when we allow ourselves to feel that connection, we are, embodying grace. We're embodying source. It's like, of course I have something. I have everything to offer because I am connected to all that is. And to have those moments of that clarity, it's like, and then the gratitude that you obviously felt and still feel for that of, I am so blessed to be able to be part of this.
Yeah.
And it's something that so many of us run away from. It's like, I don't want to go anywhere near anything like that. And to say, no, I want to show up. I want peace in the world. I want this, and to have that that formula, as you put it, to be able, it's like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up, and not just because I should, it's because it's a job, it's my obligation, but to have that kind of moment.
Right.
And to be able to, see that you matter and make a difference, just amazing.
Well, and this is what I learned about embodying grace in that moment, which was that I had access to everything I needed in the moment. I did not have to think. I did not have to control. I did not have to manufacture. And now just imagine, everyone who's listening, how would you feel every single day when you're fully present in your heart, no matter what is going on, to trust that I am connected to my divine self, that I do have the resources I need, and to be in the mystery of not knowing, but just being present. And you spoke about kids before. Same thing here. I go into these traumatized communities, and parents are like, please fix my kid. And I mean, that's, they feel in deep pain for their children. Right. But it's always the first thing. Well, how do you feel about what your child is going through? How can you be fully present in yourself? And nothing else needs to happen except you being in that infinity circuit with your child or your partner or the people that you serve. But what takes us out of that is, in the moment when we're experiencing something, we get an ego contraction. And then the next thing we know, like, we're not present. We're trying to figure out, how can we hurry up the situation? How can we fix it? How can we stop what's happening, instead of, oh, what I learned in Rwanda. Oh, this is what we're doing now. That's my
agenda.
That's going to be the topic of my next book. Oh, this is what we're doing now, having nothing to do with what I thought we were doing now.
It's like being on a set, and they say, oh, that scene you memorized, here are the new pages. Oh, okay. something you were saying just a moment ago reminded me. I just learned a new quote. It's from I think Jay Palmer, who I think created chiropractic,
Mm.
and he said, "Nature needs no help, just no interference." If you clear the resistance, then things open up. It's another way of saying, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these other things are added unto you. And this is how we clear the interference. This is how we clear the resistance. This is how we clear, not clearing the ego like it's a bad thing, but just clearing the ego's false needs that are getting in the way.
Getting to neutral.
Yeah.
And so that we can be discerning instead of judgmental. And the beauty is that we've known for a long time the effectiveness of EFT as a physiological regulatory tool, but the industry hasn't really recognized it as such until recently. And then now we have the vagus, and everyone's talking about the vagus nerve, so that's the new buzzword. But the thing that showed me how impactful this physiological regulation was when I was working with 100 orphan head of households in Rwanda. And obviously they had experienced, the worst of human tragedies, continued to live in poverty, no hope for the future. And I go into it a little bit in the book, but bottom line is I asked them, what did they want healing from? This is a naive question. And they said, healing from the wound of rape, healing from hopelessness of the future, healing from not having any parents to guide us, healing from poverty and not having any food. If I had not prepared myself in the way that I did, I have no idea what would have happened. But I just remember these big words in my head saying, we're going in and we're using EFT. And I'm like, really? And so we chose to work on the wound of rape. So 100 people, some who had witnessed it, some who had experienced it, some who had their family members affected by it. And of course, everyone was over a 10. We did 20 minutes of tapping, 3 rounds, and people got like to a place of a 2. So even I was like, what is really going on here? Right? Because it was one thing doing one-on-ones with clients and people in the United States. And food is very important in Rome. You must feed people because chances are they haven't eaten that day or whatever the deal is. So now it's noontime and there's a knock on the door and it's lunchtime. And I fully expected 100 people to just bolt out of the room. Nobody moved. I was like, what? It was a sacred, palpable, physical feeling. And so I said, well, we could go to lunch or we could sit here and just tell me what are you feeling right now? And that's when I began to understand that they were feeling safe in their bodies for the first time in their lives. And then the impact to me was just like so incredible. I call it body prayer now. How do you get ready to talk to God? You calm your physiology so you can listen. And so they were able to say this safety that they were feeling that was like the biggest gift you could have ever given them. And then, did we heal the wound of rape in 20 minutes? Absolutely not. But what we did was get people to be in a physiologically safe place where we could do the next steps to begin to unpack what needed to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, creating that foundation. I mean, it's just like what we do with the setup statement in EFT. Just creating the foundation of we're going to make this a safe space, and I'm sure that for them it was like, wait, I didn't even know this was an option.
Right.
Like food, oh, food would be great, but this, I need food, but I've had it at some point. This is something that's feeding me in a way that didn't even know was possible.
Yeah. And that was 2007, and that changed my life. I mean, that just changed all of my understanding of the healing resonance field, the heart coherence field. And I feel like EFT and the grace process helps us move into that heart coherence field so much more quickly. And that has been, and that is why my number one thing, what is that we can all do to contribute to global healing? Work on your own healing first and get to neutral. Understand what regulating your own physiology, the gifts of it, that you are divine, that you can access that divinity physiologically. It's not just a concept. And then when you can look at the 5 stages and say, oh, right now I'm in a little bit of separation. And there's a little bit of stirring going on, and I want to get to surrender where the stillness can drop in. It's like, oh, great. I remember now. And I don't get lost in the ego hopelessness, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the old idea of you can't transmit something you haven't got. It's hard for me to sit here agitated and go, I'm going to help you feel more peaceful. You're not doing a very good job right now. You're making me feel more anxious. Yeah. And if everybody was clearing that, naturally, everything, if we all clean up our side of the street, our sidewalk, our front porch, then the whole place gets cleaned up. But for me to go over and say, okay, my place is a mess, but I'm going to help you clean up your place, it's like, it's challenging. And that's not to say that until we can't help anyone heal until we're perfect. And I'm just going to, sit here and tap and go through the formula on my own for 20 years. And then when I feel nirvana, then I'll go out and try to be a surest. Right. It's we're all works in progress, and it's on the job training, but absolutely allowing ourselves to have that as much as possible so that we can go in and now I can be here for you because I'm not spending all my time trying to save myself.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, obviously I'm lucky to be in communication with many, many people who want to be of service in the world and who feel that their credentials are enough. And Mama Bear, they call me Mama Bear Lori. And I'm like, right, okay, well, that's a start. But only because I understand I do this work to heal my own childhood traumas. And I understand how important it is. You may have skill, but if you haven't done the internal work, there's a lot of people who show up to traumatized communities who want to give their best. But unfortunately, they become a burden to the system because they're not prepared or they haven't done the internal work. Oh, I have a protocol for that. I want to know, all right, right here and now, this is what we did we've done all over the world, which is everyone who's a team member must sit with the notion of, have you cleared your own Sandy Hook story first? Have you cleared your own Parkland story first? Because you can't sit in front of someone until you have done the work around your own reaction to this. And that's been a great gift. And the people that I've mentored, as much as they might resist it in the beginning, it's like, no, we got to hurry up and get to the people. And it's like, I promise you, you will feel so much better when you're with the people if you do this first. In fact, in Sandy Hook, we had 400 volunteers who and then we did a training for 35 people. And at the beginning of the day, I said, how many people are ready to tap with a Newtowner who has lost a child to this violence? Everybody raised their hand. It's like, oh, that's nice. Okay. Now let's do some role plays. By the end of the day, I said, how many people are ready to tap with a Newtowner? Nobody raised their hand. And I said, great, you can all stay. And I'm making light of it, but it's just part of the drill.
That's one of the things those of us in the EFT world know is that somebody will watch a video or they'll take a training and they'll have a very quick response and go, oh my God, tapping on your face solves all this. I'm going to go out and hang out a shingle, and I can now go out and I can cure cancer in 5 minutes. And it's like, okay, Sparky, slow it down here. And I love that people have the desire to make a difference.
Yeah, totally.
And we want to have stay within our scope of practice. And that's great to be able to say, slow it down, folks. Let's get real here, because we want to do as much good as possible, not just the good that we think that we can do, but and it's really coming from that place of grace.
Well, and imagine if we all could just relax into the notion that our greatest service work in the world is being in service to our own healing, then because I think we have a false notion of we have to hurry up and go help somebody else. But the divine is asking us to heal ourselves and come home to the truth of who we really are. And you mentioned this, I can't remember, it was in our pre-call or in our interview at the moment, but for me, EFT is an incredible tool. And it is that, it's a tool, and also having a container, not everyone will agree, but having a spiritual container or having this container of my embodied grace framework, I feel helps people deepen their practice and have a deeper understanding of the possibilities, the unlimited potential. And I think you know this too. I know you know this. The most beautiful outcome of a session is when somebody gets to 0 on something, or 0 to 2, and you ask them, and what's possible now? It is astounding how many will say everything is possible. And they're saying it's from their experience, not because you're saying it. And so when people can get to, well, anything is possible, they're out of their prison, they're out of this, whatever the thing that was contracting them. If we could give that gift to everyone in the world, now imagine a world where everyone has that sense of safety.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to create global healing, which, is kind of my deal. When I'm not busy, I'm trying to create.
Well, ultimately, we heal ourselves. When someone says, "Oh, you're a healer," it's like, well, in terms of myself, I'm a healing guide for other people,
Right.
But I can't heal anybody else.
Right.
And yeah, EFT is the tool for creating that space. It's the it's the grease that helps get rid of the friction, because we have a lot of friction. We have this story. It's like, and it has to be the story. And I've been told this is the story, and I should feel bad for the rest of my life because this happened. And there's something wrong with me if I don't feel bad about this for the rest of my life. And we feel this fight or flight, this, when we try to consider changing our mind, and it's like, no, we're just going to grease the wheels here. And it's like, oh, there might be a little wiggle room here with this belief. And as we clear that stuff, just the knowledge of our connection to source, of who we are, it's there. It's just there. We just clear the resistance to it, and all things are possible.
It's so true. What a beautiful way to summarize what we've been talking about.
And when you can embody grace, then you can grace blast people.
Tell us about that. Yes,
That's a Loriism that I absolutely love.
Grace blasting you now simply means I am sending you gratitude, love, joy, and wonder, because in the space of gratitude, love, joy, and wonder, everything is possible.
I do this on my daily walks. I go for a long walk and I grace blast people. It's like, I learned this from Lori. And it's just,
I want a buck from everybody that you blast.
Yeah. Well, because of the proprietary thing, I've changed the wording for myself just because I don't want any copyright infringement. So I'm not grace blasting you. I'm just sending you love, wishing you a good day, kind of thing. because I don't want to have to send a buck to Lori right now. But yeah, and when we allow ourselves to embody grace and then can teach people to it, and we solve everything. So thank you for being the amazing person you are. Thank you for the amazing, I'm in awe of the work that you've done. I sit here in my office and tap in front of a camera instead of going into challenging places. Um, and thank you for writing this book so that people have access to this, and we'll have links here. And I'm grace blasting you, and we're both grace blasting everybody watching this. So
That's right. Well, and just to invite people into kind of the excitement, which is, I want this book to get into the hands of as many people as possible.
amen.
And so,
Amen.
yeah. So on September 14th, during International Peace Week, we'll be offering Embodying Grace for $1.99. So no one has an excuse not to pick up a copy. But if you...
This is in 2023, because
yes,
it's maybe 2026 when you're watching this interview,
and
and you can go back and you can find the book still. But
there you go. Yeah, let's hope so. And so there's a link that people can go to on my website, drloryleyden.com, where you can sign up for information about the book launch on 9/14, and we'll be also having some events that day, live events to get people excited about it. And I'll be doing a new, I was going to say Grace Blast meditation. That's what I have to call it now.
Oh, very cool.
But yes, with music done by this angelic being. So in any event, we want to have a party.
Yeah.
We want to have a movement of teaching people that it's okay for them to heal themselves first. And so that's why I'm so excited to be talking to you.
And that link will be here in the description box below this video. And absolutely check it out. Even if it's through a book, just spend some time with this wonderful woman. Don't miss out on that.
Thank you, Brad. Can I give everybody my Zoom hug?
Absolutely. Wait, one more time, because I'm afraid that since I said absolutely, the camera's on me and they may not have seen it.
So okay.
Turn around and say, I'm giving you a Zoom hug.
I'm giving you all a Zoom hug now.
There we go. I always forget these little things that happen with the technology. All righty. So lovely seeing you. And thank you for who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you to all of your beautiful audience.